Western Conference, we have the Dallas Stars leading the way with 39 points. They are, I believe, the best team in all of hockey. No, they are the second best team in all of hockey, Dallas Stars. First place in our Central Division at 39 points. 19-5-1 is their record. St. Louis Blues coming in next, 15-7-3 with 33 points. Then we've got a three-way tie for third place in the points, led by or including your Minnesota Wild, who are 13-7-4, the Predators, who are 13-8-4, and the Blackhawks, who are 13-9-4. So technically, you're Wild in a three-way tie. You gotta love being in a three-way for third place in the Central Division, the best division in all of hockey by far, hands down, bar none. Then we've got the Winnipeg Jets at 12-12-2, 26 points, and the Avalanche 11-14-1. They stink. All right. Then out in the Pacific, we've got the Kings finally establishing themselves as the best team out in the West. Them and the Ducks is supposed to be the two teams. Ducks doing terrible this year. Not sure what's going on there. They might get it together, though. Kings 31 points, 15-8-1. Sharks 28 points, 14-10. Coyotes, I told you they'd be a little better. I didn't think they'd be this much better, but I told you they'd be a little better. They are 13-11-1 with 27 points. Canucks 9-9-8, 26 points. Ducks 9-12-5, ridiculous. Calgary Flames, told you they wouldn't be very good this year either. Most people didn't agree with me on that. 9-14-2, and then the Oilers, if it weren't for the injury, they would have a better record, but they are tied for last place in the Western Conference with the Flames. 20 points is all they got. Then out east, your stinkers with 20 points are the Blue Jackets and the Hurricanes. 21 points would be the Maple Leafs, who the Wild beat tonight 1-0, as I mentioned. But anyway, we'll stick with the Metropolitan first. So Blue Jackets and Canes at the bottom. Flyers just above them with 25 points. Devils with 28 points. Penguins with 30 points. Islanders with 32. And then the Rangers and Capitals, who, boom, I was one of the few people picking the Capitals, all because of my expert hockey source. Thanks, Poopykins. They are Capitals and Rangers tied for first with 37 points in the Metropolitan Conference. And then finally in the Atlantic Division, in the Eastern Conference, you've got the Canadiens. Those damn Canadiens. Blame Canada. They are your best. They have the best record, most points in all of hockey, 41 points, 19-5-3, followed by the Red Wings, way distant, 32 points, 14-8-4, Senators of 31 points, Bruins of 28, Panthers of 28, Lightning, surprisingly underproductive this year at 27, Sabres, predictably sucky at 23, and then, as I mentioned, the Maple Leafs, I predicted they'd be the worst team in that division this year, even worse than the Sabres. And so far, I am right. They are terrible. 21 points. Lost again to the Wild tonight. All right, so that's it for Balls on Ice. Let's get some balls dribble. All right, so my and possibly your Minnesota Timberwolves. Here's what's happened since the last time we talked sports. They won at home against the Hawks, 99-95. Then they won on the road against the Kings by 10, 101-91. Then they lost on the road to the Clippers, 107-99 on Sunday. And 2 nights ago, they lost at home to the Magic inexplicably by 3, 96-93. That's the only one that I have a little bit of a problem with. And now, for some reason, they are off for 3 days in a row before playing another home game. Okay, they played a home game on Tuesday. They're off Wednesday. They're off Thursday. They're off Friday. And then they play a home game. Like, shouldn't you have used that 3 days to have some travel time and be going to play a road game? You don't have 3 days off in between home games. Who schedules this NBA season? Seriously. But anyway, they will be at home Saturday night, 7 o'clock, against the Portland Trailblazers. Trailblazers stink. That is a very winnable home game, even though for some inexplicable reason the T-Wolves are better on the road thus far this season than they are at home. Then on Monday already, they're home Saturday with these 3 days off in between inexplicably. Travel Sunday. Nope, never mind. Off Sunday, and then another home game on Monday. We got a 4-game homestand here. Sweet. Okay. So, home Saturday against the T-Wolves or Trailblazers at 7 p.m. Home Monday, 7 p.m. against the Clippers. That'll be a tough one. And then the Kobe farewell tour he announced in a big poetic, I'm smarter than you, which he kind of is, letter/poem this last week, that this is officially his final season of NBA basketball. So if you do want to go see Kobe Bryant in person one last time, you must do that this season. If you are a Minnesota resident or just, want to see that game, maybe you're a Wisconsin resident too, it might be closer depending on where you live. That game is next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Lakers T-Wolves. So there's your next set of games until we'll be talking again. With the T-Wolves, like I said, the main thing with them is health. If Ricky Rubio's healthy and out on the court, he's been the difference maker. They win almost all of those games. And it's not because he's that great, but he is very much improved, and we're just a better, smoother running team when he's out there. So your main focus again in this early goings as a T-Wolves fan needs to be the injury report. The healthier our team is, the better we are playing. Quite simple. With the combination of very old veterans and very young guys, and not a whole lot of mid-level, established prime of their career players, that greatly changes and reduces how much depth you really truly have on your team. Whereas, losing one or two guy all of a sudden makes you really thin. It makes you more thin than just regularly losing one or two guys, because all the people stepping into the place are either, too young and inexperienced mentally or too old and worn out physically, So again, just keep an eye on that T-Wolves injury report. Otherwise, just don't freak out too much about anything. They're doing fairly good for the most part. They're still in a rebuilding mode. They're in a player development mode. And Wiggins is looking great. Towns is looking fairly good. Levine is looking really good at times. Bjelica, however you say his name, he looks pretty good at times. There's a lot of encouraging performances from young players on and throughout this T-Wolves season. So just stay patient, don't overreact, keep your expectations tempered or tapered, whichever is correct here. I'm not sure. I don't know words, and just keep enjoying the season. All right, it's a little bit of league news, quick league standings, and then we'll be done with our balls dribble. The Philadelphia 76ers winless streak. I believe they were 0-18 to start out the NBA season, a record worst start ever. They lost to the second worst team in all of basketball. They finally got their first win the other night against the second worst team in all of basketball, that being the Los Angeles Lakers. So historical badness finally comes to an end there. Philadelphia 76er player news. Jahlil Okafor has been busted multiple times now, partying, getting into fights outside of clubs, really questionable, unacceptable professional behavior from him, and very public, which is what's, why it's such a problem, is because of how public the behavior's been, not necessarily the specific details of said behavior. But this is why the guy was the third pick. This is what everybody who really knew and was in the know, which was yours truly amongst others, said. This is why Okafor's not the number one pick anymore. He was the consensus number one pick throughout the entire college basketball season last year, went on to win the freaking championship, and then for some inexplicable reason, now no one thinks he's the number one guy anymore. And he might not even be the number two guy. He's more like the 3 or 4 or 5th overall guy. What happened? Nothing changed from his standpoint as a player. Because they all got to know and interview the guy and found out that he had major freaking character flaws, question marks, issues, whatever you want to call it. I knew that. I talked about that going into the draft. Said that's why I actually like Towns, from a T-Wolves standpoint, because the risk reward Okafor has the higher ceiling. He could become a greater player than Towns could ever be, but he won't. Towns is the safe, gonna be great, might not be the greatest, but he will reach some level of greatness, and you can almost bank on that. And that was the difference. And that's why the teams who passed on Okafor, because of these character concerns, behavioral concerns, judgment concerns, mental concerns that are rearing their ugly head now. They've had to suspend him for a couple games, to try and discipline him, send a message, whatnot. And hopefully he'll get it figured out and pull his head out of his butt for his sake, not for anyone else's, because I could care less. But then also, the other big story in the NBA outside of, as I mentioned, Kobe announcing his retirement, would be the Golden State Warriors are still undefeated. They are a perfect 20-0. Amazing. A lot of these games now are getting close. They're barely hanging on. It's every team's Super Bowl now when they're playing the Warriors until they get that first loss. But just spectacular, and they're doing it all without their head coach. Steve Kerr, their head coach, has not been there for any of it. Assistant head coach Luke Walton, son of Grateful Dead enthusiast Bill Walton, has been their interim acting head coach all season. Immeasurably incredible job that he has done with this team, and he is not getting nowhere near the attention, credit, and respect that he deserves for it. It's all going to Steph Curry and whatever other players, and they do deserve a lot of credit and respect and admiration, but please don't overlook the remarkably impressive job that Luke Walton has done stepping in for head coach Steve Kerr there. So getting you closed out on these standings, and then we're done with Balls Dribble. Warriors, obviously, first place in all basketball, Western Conference included in that, at 20-0, have not even lost yet. Spurs, second best team in the West, 15-4, followed by the Grizzlies, Thunder, and Mavericks, all at 11-8. Clippers at 10-9, Jazz at 8-8, and the T-Wolves at 8-10 round out the top 8 teams in the Western Conference. The Timberwolves would be in the Western Conference playoffs if they started today, or if everything holds suit, which of course it will not. They are closely followed by the Suns and Rockets, both at 8-11. The Trailblazers, Kings at 7-12. The Nuggets at 7-13. The Pelicans surprisingly terrible at 4-15, and the Lakers not surprisingly terrible at 3-15. Then in the East, we have the first place Cavs at 13-5. The Pacers, who, when healthy, are a force to be reckoned with, and they have been healthy this year. Interesting to see if they'll be able to stay that way or not. They are 12-5, only a half a game behind the Cavs. Bulls 11-5, Heat 11-6, Raptors 12-8 after their fast start. Hawks 12-9, Magic surprising at 10-8, Hornets at 10-8, Celtics at 10-8. And then just outside looking in, we've got the Pistons at 10-9, the Knicks surprising at 9-10, Wizards surprisingly disappointing at 7-9, Bucks surprisingly disappointing at 7-12, Nets 5-13, and the Sixers still terrible at 1-19. All right, end of Balls Dribble. Squeeze in a few quickies. As I mentioned at the very top of the show, the WWE pay-per-view TLC for Tables, Ladders, and Chairs is next Sunday, not this coming Sunday, but next Sunday already, the 13th of December. We will get you a more detailed, normal WWE pay-per-view preview for that on next week's show. And the only other WWE note, as I mentioned earlier, is Raw continues to suck. The overall quality of the WWE product in general is definitely at a down spot, but if you pay attention and you've been a fan for a while, you would know that every year after SummerSlam or Night of Champions, when we hit Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, Survivor Series pay-per-view, TLC pay-per-views, that is all 3 filler, throwaway, end of the year, throwaway, filler pay-per-views, but hopefully we'll get some good OMG moments or something at this upcoming TLC one. So there's your WWE talk. New Day, that's the one thing to watch on WWE. New Day rocks. New Day rocks. All right. And then in UFC 194, which is featuring the huge fight Jose Aldo versus Conor McGregor.